This week on the Pete the Planner Show, we answer your financial questions. Why? Well, I don't know anything about home and gardening. This week on the show, we've got three distinct questions. Of course, the biggest waste of money of the week. Our first question is more of an investment question from a lady named Marilyn. She left her phone number. Marilyn, I'm married. Hi, Nicole.
Oh, hi, Pete.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I just noticed the laughter. Your mic is on.
A little giggle.
Thanks. Speaking of, since this is an investment question, can you call our good friend, lead concierge at Your Money Line, Damian Dunn, to help me answer this question? Because I just don't feel like I have the courage to answer it myself.
Yeah, give me 1
All
second.
right, you find him, and I'll set this up. This, by the way, if you ever want to email us, do so. Ask Pete, all one word, ask Pete at PeteThePlanner.com. Ask Pete at PeteThePlanner.com. Marilyn emailed me an investment question. Nicole, by any chance, do you have Damian on?
I do. I got him here
Hey,
for
buddy.
you.
Hey, Pete, how are you?
I'm excellent. The Damian Dunn, of course, is a CFP, the lead concierge at Your Money Line. Hello, Damian. Here's the question for you. Help me out. This is from Marilyn. My financial planner has my portfolio invested the following way. Cash and cash investments, 4.3%. Fixed income, 14.2%. Equities, 81%. Other assets, 0.5%. I am 80 years old and afraid of an adjustment like 2008. How should my portfolio be divided for my age? Value is a little under $1 million. Thanks for any help. Marilyn, Damian, initial thoughts?
For your typical 80-year-old, that seems like a pretty aggressive portfolio.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now rules of thumb can be messy, as you and I know, in the investment world and any other world for that matter. What was the old one? You take your age, you subtract it from 100, and then the remainder is how much you should have in bonds. Have you ever heard that one?
I don't know if I'm familiar with that one.
Well, no, it's not how much. It's how much you should. Wait, it's how much you should have in equity. So 100 minus 80, which is her age, would mean that she should have 20% in equity and 80% in bond and cash instruments.
Yeah. Yeah, that one seemed like it could be appropriate for a lot of people. In this case, if she's afraid of the adjustment, 80% equity, she's kind of poised to participate in that adjustment if it happens.
It really is a glass half empty, glass half full discussion, though, isn't it, dude? Where it's like she can either say, well, I can't afford to take the risk because I'm 80 and I have $1 million, or can she say, I'm 80, I got $1 million, I can afford to take the risk. Can't you look at it both ways? And if you can, why don't more people look at it that second way? Because it always feels like it's the half empty, I can't afford to take risk.
Sure. And I mean, that's one thing that I want to make sure we're not throwing this advisor under the bus either. I mean, you could certainly argue that if she's not comfortable with this sort of risk being assumed on her behalf, then it's the wrong portfolio. But we don't know what the rest of her holdings or assets look like. Maybe she's got all the money she needs in the world to live off of on a monthly basis. And this money has been tabbed for another goal, some long-term goal. Maybe she's going to leave it to somebody, and they're trying to maximize this as much as they can in the near future.
Yeah, I always feel like when we have to... Oh, sorry about that. I cut you off. But I'll continue. I always feel like when we have to evaluate another advisor's work, there's always a pretty big chance they'll get thrown under the bus accidentally.
Yeah, it's super easy to do. It's play armchair advisor,
right?
And it just sets everybody up for maybe some really bad direction on your assumptions.
Okay, so here's the only way we can evaluate this is with the information we have, and so whatever judgment you and I are about to make, whatever opinion we're about to give going forward, it has nothing to do with information we don't have that the advisor may be privy to. Is that fair?
Fair enough. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right, if I were still an advisor, if I were still licensed, and an 80-year-old came to me with $1 million and said, do you think I should be in 81% equities? And that's all the information I had. I would say, absolutely not. What would you say?
I'd want to make sure we have a really good conversation before I say, yeah, this is an appropriate portfolio allocation for you. But out of hand, no, I'd say 81% is way high.
Because so classic investment management, financial planning stuff, when when you always ask a client, what's your investment objective? You know, the classics: capital appreciation, growth in income, tax advantage, liquidity, all these sorts of things. She says, I'm afraid of an adjustment like we had in 2008. Damien, when you hear that, what do you view her objective to be? Capital preservation?
Yeah, I would have to think that it would be primarily concerned about capital preservation. I would guess that she's taking some income off of this for living expenses. But when somebody says they're afraid of an adjustment, they're protecting what they got.
You know, what are the chances here, pal, that she's in 81% equities and 14% fixed income, but the 81% equities are, and I would guess they are, all high dividend paying stocks. Therefore, her income is actually being generated from this. There's another way to generate income from a portfolio and not expose it to the economic downside.
Sure. You could set up a bond ladder, or maybe put a fixed bucket up front where you've got everything that you're going to need for the next couple of years set aside, so it's not participating in the market and the ups and the downs. There's a few different ways an advisor could structure this to make sure that even if the portfolio gets a little bit of volatility, that it's not going to affect the day-to-day life for a couple of years.
All right, let's do this. We got 2.5 minutes left, Damien. Let's tell Marilyn, and Marilyn, by the way, you may be listening on the radio or watching at PeteThePlanner.tv, or you may have received a reply to your email, the audio file, so you can actually listen to it. Damien, let's do this. Let's tell Marilyn what she needs to say to her financial advisor. Let's translate what we're saying so it can be appropriately received by an advisor who we can only assume has her best interest in mind, that he just wants to do right by her, or she wants to do right by her. So what should Marilyn say to her financial advisor upon listening to our answer here?
I'd schedule an appointment with them and do this face-to-face if possible, rather than over the phone, and make sure that the advisor understands that Marilyn is uncomfortable with the amount of risk that she's taking in the portfolio. That is something that any advisor would be able to understand, that she wants to make sure she's set up and protected in case the market pulls back.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like she needs to say to him, I'm worried about another crash. And here's the answer she doesn't want to hear, Damien. Oh, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
That's the worst possible thing she could hear, not because the advisor isn't right. I mean, but that's not the advisor's job.
They're not listening at that point. At that point, her next question is, do you know what an ACAT is?
I like that. That's a little financial humor. It's a transfer form to get her assets out. But yeah, because then at that point in time, we're assuming he's a he, well, who cares? He is asking her to assimilate to his risk tolerance. And that is awful.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about risk tolerance is it's a very personal thing. And the minute you start assuming somebody else's risk tolerance, things go bad more often than good.
I think back to my days as an advisor, we'd always had to fill out a tremendous number of paperwork. And part of that was the suitability analysis. We'd have to take the trade to our compliance officer and say, we believe this is suitable for this client because of these facts. I don't think I could get an 81% equity portfolio for an 80-year-old by my compliance department back in the mid-2000s.
Yeah, I don't. That would have been really tough sell to your compliance officer in your office.
All right, Damien, we always lean on you for, well, frankly, everything that we do on a daily basis, including today's radio show. Thank you, my friend. Have a good weekend yourself. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Pete.
Coming up after the break, I like this phone a friend. I have a student loan question. Maybe we call Phil Schumann from IU. We'll do that next. I'm Pete the Planner.